Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited, and here's why. This is a course I started building. Its initials are MM. See if you can guess the name of the course in the comments. I bet none of you get it. This is going to be a behemoth of a course. It's going to be bigger, or maybe roughly the same size as the entire Carrot Poker School. It's going to be a completely systematic, comprehensive game plan for no-limit hold'em cash games, using lines your opponents are not familiar with to destroy them. When you start studying poker and you look at a GTO Wizard sim with 7 different sizes, you're effectively hacking your way through the jungle with an axe, trying to figure out what's going on, getting bushes and thorns in your face and getting attacked by monkeys from the trees. So that's what happens when you go to the jungle. And so we want to trim down what you actually have to study by pulling out some kind of electric chainsaw and just like carving your way through the jungle quickly and having a path that you know really well that your opponents don't. This is the key question that we ask at the start of this brand new course. It's what future nodes does my strategy take me to most often? And we're crafting lines that take you down a very specific road so that you can become masters of those spots and not have to study any other spots. For example, if you never play a B33 on the flop in a single raise pot in position, you don't have to study a turn node that follows from that. You can just set up your custom sims, or don't even bother and just like watch this course when it comes out, to effectively study spots that use the sizing you're going to be building. So we're going to refer to the choices of nodes we're going to enter, the situations we're going to be in this course as key nodes, and we're going to really become experts at them because these are going to be the commonly functional situations that are really important to our win rate. Our game plan, therefore, is going to forge us a path through that game tree, through that jungle, and allow us to streamline our study. There's too much to study in poker. We need to streamline it, and that's what we're going to do in this brand new course as well. We're going to become experts in the situations down which we drag our opponents, and we're not going to need to study the situations that we never choose to embark on. Our sizes and our lines will forge the path through the poker jungle. There's a little bit at the bottom there about nutted flop textures, where we are going to be using a very big c-bet sizing in position in a single raise pot as the pre-flop raiser. Spoiler alert. And that will affect the key nodes as you drive up that flop c-bet sizing. You actually play a turn node more often. I'm going to talk about that today in today's video. We're going to review a bunch of hands I played at 200 Russian cash this morning, where I showcase some parts of this game plan. If you can't wait till November, and this has whet your appetite for learning some weird and wonderful sizes, if you want to expand your toolkit, play about with different options, see what you like, I'll give you 31, just made up that number, 31% off Weapons of War at Carrot Corner. That is, of course, all about how to craft these kind of sidelines, cool situations, expand your poker arsenal of tricks. Check out at Carrot Corner, use code WEAPONS31 to get 31% off. I'll leave that up for like a week or two, not much longer. Let's get to this video. Let's see this in action. Let's review some hands and do the practical application of the game plan that I'm building in this new course. Let's go. The cards are in the air, and as you can see, we're about to flick in the call here with the 7-6 offsuit and the big blind against the button. We flop pretty nice, backdoor flush draw, open ender, 2 overs to the 5, not that that's difficult. And we're going to go for a check here. Our game plan does not entail any donk betting on the flop on this texture. Hint, hint. So we check here, and villain goes for a small. I assume this is range. It's usually range when it's this sizing. Now you're going to see a line that we do include in this new game plan. It's coming out in November. And it is the very small flop raise. Just to understand the sizing of that flop raise, if we called 1.1, the pot on the flop would actually become, or on the turn rather, would become 6.7. And we're only making it another 2.8 to villain. So you can see that that's actually like just under half pot. This is a very small raise. And with it, we lay down a gauntlet. We're basically saying to our opponent, hey, you've just bet an entirely merged random range of hands. You've just bet like all sorts of stuff. You've bet ace-8 of clubs at the same frequency that you've bet kings. And that's going to be difficult for you to handle. Because if you polarize at all here, you move away from hands like, let's say, ace-jack of diamonds, and you move towards hands like 6-8 or king-queen or pocket fives. But when you bet range, you just have a range that looks like this. Blech. That's what it looks like. And therefore, it's very difficult to take that range against the small raise and defend adequately. When we're building this in our game plan, guys, I've already researched this a fair bit. We're going to be going really quite diverse in our hand choice. We're going to have the standard, more polarized stuff. We're going to have higher equity bluffs, lower equity bluffs, value hands. But we're going to have a lot of thin value. We're going to have a load of hybrid hands as well. 4x and 5x, that kind of thing. So our range here allows us to do a ton of raising for this small sizing. And so very, very often, we get to drag our opponent down this unfamiliar path through the jungle and force them to figure it out. On this turn card, the 10 of hearts, a 10 in general is going to be a very bad turn card for our range because we're not going to be making anything nutted at all on that card. All of our draws are going to brick about as hard as they can, although we'll pick up a few backdoors with like the queen, jack of spades, etc. And we're going to just make a little bit of second pair and mostly just brick here. But when it's the 10 of hearts, that's different. And this is a sizing you can use. This half pot is the chosen sizing in the game plan that we're building for turn cards that boost the equity of our semi-bluffs or make our semi-bluffs nutted, like this hand here. Or not nutted, but, you know, semi-nutted. So here, our two pair, our good king X, become a bit weaker, but they can still value bet for a small size, like half pot here. The smaller you go on the flop, the less filtered the ranges are on the turn, and the thinner you can go on the turn, relative to if you went bigger on the flop, right? If you went 8x villains bet on the flop, you now have to be way more cagey and check like all of your top pair here, I'd imagine. So this merges things out. It removes our nut advantage, but it boosts our range equity. We talk about this a lot in grade 3 of the Carrot Poker School. We talk about this a ton. And therefore we size down on turns like this. We're just betting a thinner, more mergy value range. We go for half pot here. I think this is a really good sizing. And this is the game plan. If you get a turn like this after your very small, obnoxious flop raise, you're going to become a master of wielding this bet size here. And villain starts tanking. And because he's so terrified of us, he obviously folds. Wait, what? He raised? Yeah, I just expect this to be very, very strong. You might look at that and be like, did we get exploited because we had 7 high and he... No, like we're putting all of our flushes and sets and all of that stuff into that same sizing. That just is our universal sizing in that spot on the turn. In reality, I would expect this sort of play, this giant raise in position, to just be extremely underbluffed and nutty due to how automatic and easy it is to just flick in the call with some draw here. Very, very underbluff spot. If you do anything but fold here, you should seriously quit the game right now and just don't even get the course when it comes out. There's no hope for you. Anyway, moving on. I mentioned previously that on the last texture, there was no donk betting. But on this one, there is. And this is part of the game plan on certain boards, because the more you become proficient at donk betting, again, the more often you take your opponent out of their comfort zone. These things are theoretical. We're not, you know, advocating playing like an idiot on the flop here. This is a normal thing to do. Again, you'll note here that the turn card is very good for our range. It is going to complete lots of our draws. So while a queen in general is not such a good card for the donking range, the queen of spades is. And I figured with the straight equity here and top pair, and given I donked small on the flop, my hand is good enough for another block. And therefore, I decided to do that. I think this is like getting somewhat near the bottom equity-wise and what we want to bet again with, but with this level of filtering and it being a second small bet, I think this is totally fine. And today was just the day where we got raised an absolute ton on the turn. Okay, it only really happened twice. And this is already an interesting spot, a much closer spot than the last one, but this player was playing very nitty. You can't see the VPIP here because we're covering stuff up, or maybe you can, depending how the editor's done it, but there's a 17 VPIP, but they were just playing like a tight recreational. So when they raise here, you know, when a tight recreational raises you in this spot, you have to really honestly look at your outs. Your outs are all to stuff that's dead to a flush. And the problem is that villain's main value region is a flush. Could they have bluffs here? Yeah, sometimes. Could they have value hands that are not flushes? Yes, they could be raising like 2 pair, or they could be raising a slow play from the flop at some low frequency. But very often they'll raise those hands on the flop, therefore their value range on turn is mostly flushes. Our redraw when they have value is terrible, and I think the spot's severely underbluffed, and therefore we should fold even though we have a lot going on, right? We have top pair, we have an open end straight draw, but we just don't have enough going on to be able to stomach this action from a recreational player, so we fold. Partner poker's making good creative folds. It's something you should aspire to do. It's fun. It doesn't need to be seen as like this like negative thing, like, oh, folding is negative and boring and it makes me feel weak. No, folding is a sign of power and bravery if you can do it properly. The fold of a lion, as we like to say at Carrot Corner. Okay, onto a blind versus blind 3-bet pot situation here. We'll just skip forward to pre-flop action. We 3-bet queen 9 offsuit, villain calls. The flop is queen jack 3 with 2 spades. And I will show you the part of the game plan that we're using here. I've not fleshed this out fully. I don't know exactly what sizing we're going to be using here, but it will be in the vicinity of 15 to 20% of the pot. It'll be a very, very small bet on textures like this. To understand why that's difficult for villain to deal with, they get here with a lot of hands like 5s, 6s, 7s, ace high, etc. And then another cluster of hands like, you know, straight draw plus second pair, top pair. The latter group is basically just not indifferent to any reasonable size, and the former group is really hard to handle to a really small size. So that's kind of some of the rationale for that. I think when you've gone that small on the flop, and I still need to like study this node, this isn't a node I've studied very much, like blind versus blind, polarized, big blind range, 3-bet pot, but I think that this is not too thin. We're going for like close to pot here as the toolkit sizing, and whenever you hit someone with a really small bet and then suddenly a really big bet, it makes their life kind of just hell, like utter hell. So that's an exploitative consideration to take people out of their comfort zone, but the theory here is probably going to say something like, if you've not put in that much money on the flop, you're somewhere between having bet the flop for normal sizing and having checked. So like if you B50'd the flop, I don't think I would be using this sizing scheme on turn. I definitely wouldn't be betting this hand. But after B15ing the flop or B20ing the flop, you can go for value much thinner on the turn. Villain's range is still like very mixed mergy here. He's probably going to start raising a lot of the good queens actually against the small flop sizing. I believe this is a leaf out of the Hungry Horse playbook. Get them to raise off their good hands, right? It's his favorite saying. And yeah, there's a lot of merit to that against humans. In spots where you go really small and flop, people will start to raise some king, queen, ace, queen, which will make your queen 9 thicker on the turn. So whenever you do go for these tiny flop bets and 3-bet pots, you're going to want to make up for lost ground with your turn sizing toolkit, and you can go for value more thinly than you could otherwise. So we go for this, and villain makes the call. We have a King of Hearts river here. I don't think there's too much to say. I'm basically in auto check back mode. We're always going to have some showdown value here against the check. We're going to be beating 4x of spades, like 4-5. We're going to beat like ace 10 of spades. We're going to beat ace jack. We're going to chop with queen 9 suited. There's just lots of ways that we do well here. Unfortunately, the kicker of the 10 plays, we lose this one. But yeah, pretty happy with the line. And I think queen 10, villain played it fine. He probably does need to raise that at some frequency in such a wide configuration against such a small sizing, by the way, because if he never raises a hand like queen 10 on the flop, we just get this free passage to the river with so much of our range. And this is another benefit of the small flop bet. If people fail to raise it enough, you just kind of get like uber realization with a not that strong of a range, right? The big blind range is very polar. It contains like some 10-5 of clubs here. It has some very bad hands in it, some ace 4 offsuit, etc. So it's kind of nice if people are going to under raise. I'd expect that to happen at the micro and low stakes a lot. In this hand, we've opened under the gun. We've been called by the big blind. And one of the things that made me want to build the very big flop sizing that we're building in this course for single raise pots on nutted textures, right? So something like 983, where you have this big chunk of your range that's killing the opponent, that's combinatorically quite abundant. Jacks, queens, kings, aces. Right, now I know technically villain can have 9-8 or 3s or 8s or 9s, but that's not a huge part of range. So this to us is, for all intents and purposes, a nutted flop. That's a terminology that we're using. I've coined it first. Don't try to take it. I'm making this course with that terminology. You're not. Sorry, I don't know where that came from. So the cards in this flop are very close together, huh? Let's just let them, there we go, back into their normal resting positions. So on 983 Rainbow, we are playing a very, very big c-bet size. 19x pot. Just kidding, it's not that big. And therefore we check a lot. And this is what I was saying earlier. When you weave your way through the jungle, you carve out a certain path. You want to ask what are the keynotes. So when we're playing a really big c-bet size, we check more often. We obviously pure check 8-7 when we're playing a big c-bet size, but don't worry. We'll explain all of this in the course when it comes out in November. Hopefully November. it means that you get to this turn spot a lot. You will frequently be on the turn because you're not c-betting the flop as much, which means if you can get really good at facing probes, by the way, the pool is awful at probing. They're so bad. There's a few types of players. There's fish that just have no idea how to probe. They just literally probe completely at random. Then there are like try-hard regs that are like trying to do some equilibrium thing, but are just like way like under check raising and just never slow playing their good hands and just auto leading big all their good stuff in high equity draws and not finding any low equity bluffs, that sort of thing. And then you get like the MDA reg who actually just like, some of them are good at poker, they're using mass data, and others just don't actually know what poker is, but they're following a playbook. Like they've shown up for a job, they didn't know it was poker, they've been sat down by the manager, it's like click this button at this time. I think this might be the third type. This might be the MDA reg that doesn't know what poker is. Because look what happens in this hand. We have a very clear slow play on the turn, by the way. And that's because we lose to all other 8x. We don't have a massive investment ceiling against a 9 or something. Although we can go like raise bet. But more than that, villain's just probably polar. And if you made me guess, just like out of control. Because it's very, very difficult not to be completely out of control when you lead B75 on this turn against under the gun. It's very difficult not to be totally overdoing it. Don't believe me, check out a sim. It's very, very hard not to be a complete flailing mess in this spot if you're just a normal human. So we slow play. There's just too much air. I want villain to hit some of that air in the river. I want them to bluff again. I have position. I can control the pot size on the river. There's lots of reasons to slow play here. I think it's best. Villain goes for a river bet. And now, like, I think I got this a bit wrong. I decided to go for small raise here. And this is a fully exploit thing. It wasn't a game plan thing. But I was just kind of thinking, I feel like he's just way over bluffing. Like, I don't think he wants to bet a 9 now. I don't think he wants to bet 10s anymore. I don't think he's going to be leading much ace-x on the turn, apart from like ace-5 of hearts or something if he knows what's going on. So I figured he just has nothing a lot of the time. And I also figured I would just raise something small to like leave the door open for them to do something silly. I don't think this is a spot where an MDA reg is going to do something silly, but that's why I made a small raise. In hindsight, maybe it's best just to like play against the guy in the pool that's leading randomly and erratically on the turn, which is a lot of people. Like, I don't understand what villain is thinking on the turn. I can't really comprehend it with ace queen for this sizing. It just looks really, really bad. It could be that they're saying something like MDA playbook says lead, or like B75 pot gets a lot of fold equity here, but they're doing it with the hand that beats the entire folding range, or like almost the entire folding range. Maybe I fold like deuces that I opened a quarter of the time or something. I don't know, but it feels very, very bad from villain. And one of the reasons that I love playing a big flop c-bet is that, and why I recommend it in my new course, is that people are very good relative to facing other sizes at dealing with B33. They've studied it, they've faced it, they know how to check raise somewhat. The overfold is not massive anymore. It's not as big as it used to be like 6 years ago in the data or anything like that on the flop. And there's actually a trend now where more and more people are using bigger flop sizing because it's kind of where some edge is. But the edge isn't just in the branch where you bet the flop, it's in the branch where you check back the flop. And then you get people doing shit like this on the turn. People play very badly against flop check behinds in both the turn probe node, where they lead, and in the node where they check again and face a delayed c-bet and then overfold, like probably more than any other spot in the game tree. Don't quote me on that, but it's up there. Delayed c-bets are very overfolded too. Just in case you need a bit more evidence of like how this strategy works and how people play against it, we get a call here. Very fast timing here from big blind. We have queens, we check back. Ace King X is a nutted flop in the same sense that 9-6 deuces, because villain really struggles to beat a lot of our unique hands here. We have ace queen, we have monopoly on ace queen, ace king, aces, kings, that sort of thing. It's not as many combos maybe as like overpairs are in an 8 high flop, but ace king is extremely powerful. It's higher equity than an overpair is on a 9 high flop generally. So the nut advantage here is still really big. Villain is going to struggle to make sets. There's only like the deuce that he can make a set with here. That's 3 combos. 2 pair is also few and far between. You don't have king deuce or ace deuce offsuit. You will have the suited variants, and of course villain won't have ace king very often. So big nut advantage board, going to play the the big mystery sizing here as well. That means queens is a check. We enter this node very, very often. There's nothing to think about. We face this, and we know from GG, Russian Cash, like, there are some good players in this pool. There are a lot of, like, awful poker players in this pool as well. When I face this line, like I just called down, and you're going to see some really weird merges. Like, leading 10s on this turn is so pointless and bad for third pot. Like, I just can't, or for any sizing, really, but yeah, I just can't explain how bad it is. 10s is basically stable, in the sense that, like, if I ever fold to his third pot turn lead, I literally have, I don't know, queen 9 of diamonds or something, so, like, it's just one overcard. And maybe I fold, like, 3s? I don't know, do I fold anything? Maybe I fold, like, 3s? But the point is that it's in an immensely bad spot for villain's range. It's a very good spot for our range. When we check back on the flop, we don't make it a good spot for villain's range. We do remove the top of our range, but we're still killing them in terms of equity, right? So you don't want to lead the middle when it's not a vulnerable hand and your range is getting destroyed. You don't want to do that. It's very, very bad poker. What you'd rather do is lead like a 5 on 7-5-3 deuce. That's okay. You can third pot that. You don't want to lead 10s on ace king deuce. So anyway, you guys know this, right? Probably I'm beating a dead horse at this point. But you can see how often in like the 200 Russian cash pool, people are randomly and erratically leading the turn. It happened twice in like 20 minutes earlier. It happens all the time. If you're playing 25 NL, 10 NL, 50 NL, it's going to happen even more. So do check back the flop and just witness the mistakes people are making. Ostensibly, they're making way more mistakes against that line than a frequent c-bet strategy, in my opinion. I know there are spots later that they make mistakes there too, and I'm not saying you can't play a frequent c-bet strategy. You can, but this is one of my favorite ones. The good news is that the stuff we're covering in this new course, it's going to come up all the time. So, you know, we've already talked about facing small c-bet that's likely a range bet in this video. We saw a spot like that earlier. Here we're against a non-fully stacked, tighter recreational-ish player, so we decided to just peel the small blind here with 5-4. I think this is good. We could donk bet this flop for sure. I'm playing some donk here. I didn't donk bet this time, but yeah, definitely a decent thing to do. If you do think your opponent's range betting all the time, letting them do that is also pretty good here. They go for half pot. Even though I expect this to be a bit stronger, I'm still going to attack it a lot with this hand, and the reason is that I can get called by worse in this situation. I can fold out hands that are very live against me. I can bink something later and win a big pot, and maybe I can't make too many better hands fold yet, but I will be able to on turn. I have the sort of hand that's going to be able to bet turn really, really often. Our hand is massive equity here. It's a huge, huge draw. Sometimes we're value betting against ace deuce of hearts or ace king of hearts or something like that. So we just go for a very big sizing here. And this is a great hybrid bet, I think. It's just like multi-purpose. If I thought my opponent was going to jam a lot, I wouldn't want to do this anymore, though I'd just have to call the jam, I guess. But I'd probably do something else, but that's the only specific read that could put me off that spot. So toolkit there for a turn that's generally good for your range, like the deuce, is, well, it's not amazing for your range, but it's certainly one where you're still doing a lot of like piling with the top of your range. The game plan is like very big bets and checks, right, after you've raised a half pot flop c-bet. So that's a slightly different spot to before, where we small raised the small bet. The half pot bet, I do expect it to be a bit stronger on average, but I still think people are way exceeding their allowed betting volume for this sizing. I think they're just like putting too many hands in the c-bet range for this size, and I would favor raising here. Like, I think raising is better than calling here, all else being equal. So we open button here, we get called by big blind. The lesson of this hand is that you can start off with your kind of theoretical game plan of checking this hand because it's a semi-medium to good hand and you're playing a huge c-bet, so you're not going to c-bet it. Going to the turn node that you know they're going to get really wrong, and then crafting some kind of exploit plan here. Like, there are going to be optional exploit plans interwoven into this course. The backbone of the course is a theoretically solid but unfamiliar game plan to your opponents, but at every juncture there are exploitative options. This is a tight recreational-ish weak player, and so when faced on the turn with the choice between checking and betting big and betting small, I prefer betting small, and that's because I don't think we're going to get enough river aggression from a passive tight recreational if we check. I don't therefore want to just let them realize, And I don't think they're protecting their checking range enough on turn, or check raise bluffing, or doing anything difficult to handle. So I'm just going to bet really small, take the denial, get called by ace high or some lower pair. I think this just becomes the best line as your opponent starts to play more and more placidly. Villain folds here, but yeah, interesting common spot. Putting some focus on these like very run-of-the-mill common spots and how to exploit in them. I think this is a sizable part of win rate in today's games. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I'll show you what the really big flop size is for single raise pots. Some of you may have seen it already if you've watched our streams. We open King Jack of Hearts. So I'm also going to show you a hand that is a pure bet that you wouldn't do any mixing with. There aren't that many hands like this. They're just going to be your big, massive draws and your very good value hands that are pure bets. Everything else is either going to be a pure check or a mix. And yeah, did you catch that? The guy folded so quickly. He was folding to any size, right? He had like auto check fold ticked. Talk about taking a sledgehammer to kill a fly, right? Look at this. But this is our flop sizing for nutted flops. So Queen 10-5 is mostly a nutted flop, because although villain can have Queen 10 and Queen 5 suited in 5s, they usually don't have 10s or queens. Double broadways are boards where they have quite a medium condensed range. They have like open enders, flush draws, top pair, second pair, a lot of hands that we can quote unquote target with this huge sizing. Are we going to really finish the video by saying that we're targeting? What the hell? Remember, code weapons 31. Use it at checkout to get Weapons of War, to get a flavor for more weird and wonderful lines. This course, this fully comprehensive game plan course, is in the workshop. I'm working on it daily. I'm excited. I'm liking it. I'm getting that same kind of like passion I had when I was building Carrot Poker School. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be just what we need for 2025 going into 2026. More announcements to come. Thank you for watching. Do take a minute to like the video. Please also take a minute, if you're still here, thank you. Take a minute to subscribe to the channel. There have been some poker videos that have been age restricted and not shown to that many people, and that will obviously stop you seeing the content if that ever happens to us. So do hit the subscribe button. We appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.